sure my jump off is working. Trying to wait for it to come on my regular screen. Okay, yeah, I think it's working now. One second, my people. Just making sure. Oh, it's working. It's working. Gucci, Gucci, Gucci. Yeah, I gotta. I'm stuck using my phone to do my videos because I'm not trying to pay for the StreamYard app. But let me know if you guys have trouble hearing me at any point. Not that I'm gonna get StreamYard because of that. Actually, let me turn off this light. I hope you guys are doing fantastic too. I'm actually using a selfie stick, something I've never used in my life, nor probably ever use in my life. But I don't want to. Oh, now it's too dark. But again, I hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. This thing is ripping on me, bro. I hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. I'm trying to get some light up in here. And if you guys are in the room too, let me know what's up. I like to have engaging conversations rather than talking to myself. But oh, let me check my sound too before I even start. Man, what's up with this thing? I'm gonna just hold it like this. To the three that are watching currently, I mean, I'm just making some last minute adjustments. But I'll start if somebody comments too. Just 1 second. I'm trying to fix my shit. Yo, this shit is crazy dark, man. What's up? But I hope you guys are having a wonderful evening. I'm actually gonna touch on another topic that wasn't in this in the title of my video. And that's regarding a not a rumor. There was a post put out on Truth Social, one of these stupid websites. Ask them to flip this shit around. This is annoying. On Truth Social, on one of these websites, and it was suggesting that, it was a post. It could have been Truth Social or Twitter. And there was a post where somebody suggested Trump utilizing the military to address the migrant deportation problem that he will be facing, or that he's been claiming to fix once he gets in office. I'm sorry about the camera moving around, but I'm trying to fix some stuff. I hope that doesn't sound shitty too. Sorry, my people. Yo, what's up with this phone today? But there's a rumor going around. Not a rumor. It was actually a post where somebody said that Trump may be using the military in order to conduct his migrant removal operation that he'll soon be having to partake in when he becomes president. You guys don't living under a rock. Like Trump has been the president of removing a lot of the immigration problem that we have here in America, especially recently. A lot of people were saying, in a sense, that he's bugging because an immigration operation like that would be bananas, like something that we've never seen probably in the history of this country. So a lot of people are kind of like suggesting that how the hell he's gonna do all that, or how's he gonna remove all these migrants? Probably within the same system that we have now, which is not working, and migrants still stay. So there was a post put up on Twitter or a Truth Social, one of the two, in which somebody asked Trump, or they put a comment that Trump would use the military um, to. Damn, who the hell's calling me? Fuck. Oh, it's my brother from jail. God damn it. I knew that was gonna happen, bro. Like, cause. Well, let me put do not disturb though. I can't pick up anyway. No, my brother just got. I said it on this channel before. My brother's. Unfortunately, he got sentenced a couple of weeks ago, and he's gonna be doing at least 2 bullets, which sucks. I mean, and prayers up for him. But he was just in Rikers Island, and now he's in Ulster County, waiting to go to another jail upstate. Give me 1 second, guys. All right. So now he tried to call me now, of course, and I'm here with you guys, but I don't want to be sad either. Talking to my baby bro. Prayers up for him, and I hope he gets released soon. Maybe, but he's actually talking about doing a crash program with one of those stupid boot camp things where they release you early, and he probably needs that anyway because he's a little bit on the portly side. He could do it that regimen, I guess. But going back to what I was saying, so somebody on Truth Social or Twitter, one of the two, suggested made a post not recommending or anything like that. It was just saying like an idea that Trump, should he partake in a migrant removal operation in the future, which he will, that he would likely have to use the military in that endeavor. Trump replied on that post something along the lines of true or right, basically suggesting that that was the plan. However, some people may feel a way about the military operating in this country in that capacity, like basically as a police force. And I've always had reprehensions of that. Like, when I was a kid, I always like, it wasn't like something I feared, but I always had the thought, living in Brooklyn, while like in my little public housing apartment back in the day. But I always had this like weird thought of looking out the window and seeing tanks like on the streets. And oh, look at my the cat we're working with now, Glory. Hi, Glory. She's very mean still though. Could you see her? Let me see if you can see her. I'm trying to see on the playback. Yeah, she's right there. Hi, Glory. She likes me, but she don't let nobody touch her. But I always had that fear coming up of like tanks in the streets, and would operation, like I just never liked the fact, like I never liked the thought of like having military out in like regular street functions, because I actually saw military doing police functions in New York, and this probably started around like 2010, 2011. They would have police in the biggest train station in New York, which is like Atlantic Avenue. It's like the central hub. They would have military, like two military guys there at times, or like 4. But they would have even more in the train station near my job, which was probably the biggest train station in New York, Grand Central Station. Hey, Bruce Gas, salute, man. I'm sorry I didn't join the rock trivia contest, bro. I could have done well too, Bruce. I'm a connoisseur, but nevertheless, hey Bruce, name a band that has a female drummer lead singer, if you know it real quick. But I always like when I would go to work and I would have to get off in Grand Central Station in Manhattan. I would see a ton of military there, and that was like a new phenomenon. Like they wouldn't be there with rifles all the time; they would with rifles sometimes, but it might have been military police that were like detailed out to help with having an additional like security police presence in Grand Central Station. And I'm pretty sure that's why they did it in New York, in Brooklyn too, when I would see them in Atlantic Avenue. Now that wasn't in a ton of stations, but even back then, and mind you, I wasn't like a little kid then. Like my when I tell you guys that I had the fear of looking out my window and seeing tanks outside my window, like that little vision that I would have. Um, what do you call it? Oh, so I feared that as a kid, basically. Like I just always thought, like if I looked out the window, like how bugged out would it be to see that? And when I was an adult and saw the military in train stations, it wasn't like a comforting feeling, like because my mind was going through some shit at that. Not my, going through some shit, but I was thinking about things way differently too. Again, this is me, surf out player. Even though I'm working, I'm still like very pissed that New York City has a stop and frisk policy. Then I'm thinking like, what if this military effort is something in that effect, or like I just thought like maybe like what if these assholes are getting used to seeing the military on public places, like doing police function, if you will. And also, we're kind of like touching right at 2012 at this time for Surf Out Player's life. So, that whole like end of the world thing, I didn't believe that stuff. Yeah, but what if? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I was thinking like, are these people getting acclimated to seeing military and having military do police functions, which is again, it's unconstitutional, um, or it's fringing upon being unconstitutional. Um, so I didn't like that. I don't like the thought of more police in most cases. I've deviated from that notion, and now that New York has gotten so bad, like I can't be a um, anti-cop absolutionist like I'm a free speech absolutionist. No, I gotta be in New York needs more police. And New York honestly needs the police to be far more brutal than they are now. That's what it's gonna take. And not just with the migrant problem either. Like you got a lot of dumb motherfuckers in New York that act just as bad as the migrants. Um but so again, I'm not like a police absolutionist. I've deviated my stance on the police, like or the policing that's required in New York, my hometown. Um, Probably post 2020. You know what I'm saying? And even now, like I don't fuck with the cops like that. Like I don't like if I have a problem, I'm not calling those assholes. In most cases, like I gotta deviate that too as well because it's not worth fighting people when somebody gets out of line. If you touch me, I'm gonna fight you. But um like I wouldn't call the cops if I was getting jumped, so to say. I'll put it like that. But if I saw like back in the day, like if somebody were robbing like a woman, like I wouldn't give a shit. Like no, not a woman. Like if somebody were robbing, I don't know, just a regular schmo civilian, um, I wouldn't give a shit. Like now I probably, or if somebody got like poked up, like sometimes I call like the cops like so they could pick them up. Other times, I kind of like wouldn't give a shit. But nowadays, like, I mean, if I see shit in this neighborhood, I'm calling the cops because like I pay to live in the suburbs. I don't want shit to do. I don't want my suburb to become an urban area by any stretch. However, you want to define that. I mean, like, if you think that's bigoted, fantastic. But I pay like not to live like in the hood. I'm from the hood. Like I used to be an asshole like in my 30s or like the young 30s. Oh, I love it here. Like oh, I love coming back here. Like now I feel like a tourist when I go back. Not even a tourist, but It's not fun, and I know like it's not because like I lost balls or something. I know people that plenty gully that still live in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, my neighborhood, that feel the same way. That don't go out as often. That don't hang out outside in New York. Which I don't care where you're from. Like in New York, if you leave town and then you come back to New York, you go outside and chill. Like I mean, that's mandatory. Like you know, you want to get that feeling because that's something that you be careful about calling the cops. They will then turn on you. Oh no, no, I don't call the cops like that often. I mean like, but here the thing is like I'll give an instance like like my next door neighbor who I don't can't stand during COVID he's his my wife looked out the window here on the second floor of my house and she saw a couple of youngsters like fucking with their car like they have a like an Escalade or something and again, I don't like my mom happened to be staying here because like during COVID, I was like thinking like if something bad happens in New York, I'd rather have my mom here. So I look out the window. Actually, I could probably show you. Actually, I don't want to show that alley. But my wife looks out the window and these three herbs are like next door messing with like oh in between my alley and my neighbor's alley. So my wife tells me and I go out there and I tell them what's up. I was like, you know, I was like, what the fuck you guys want? And then one of them was like, oh, our friend lives here, but they're walking away. So I told my wife, you know, get the hand whistle. Um, like these dudes are trying to break into cars, and they took off running, and I took off running after them. But they went, and this is like a very I mean, I can show you. I mean, like, but I don't want some troll like popping up here and like me having to clobber him. But they took off running, and I told my wife to call the cops. So technically, I didn't call the cops. But they, I think they were tracking them because I'm on the borderline of another neighborhood, and that other neighborhood is nicer than my neighborhood. But the part of my neighborhood that touches that nicer neighborhood is kind of like nice too. So I think the cops were like tracking them from the other neighborhood. And right when I called, like right when my wife called, literally like I saw like three cop cars like, and this whole area full of cops like, and they went like down the block that my wife told the cops they ran down. Um, so in that case, I mean, like, sure, I could have chased these clowns down and like, you know, but it's 3-on-1, and it's not my car, honestly. If looking back on it, I um should have let my neighbor's car get jacked because he's an asshole. But um, I don't want roofians to think that they have a base of operation anywhere around here, you know, like or thinking that they're gonna come up um off of me and mine, you know, because this is not too far, like from Newark, New Jersey, and Newark, New Jersey has like carjackers and all that shit. And you know, I again, it's not my property, but how hard would it be, you know, for some asshole to say rather than go to that house, like come to Sir Foul Player's house and like you know go bother him, you know. Again, if they enter my home or into my abode, ain't no cops needing to be called because Sir Foul Player got that one completely under control. But if it's I would call more along somebody else's. And again, I only say this like or illustrate any of this because I'm anti-police. Like I just got into a problem with police just this past week, and they towed my vehicle pricks, and it was a Puerto Rican cop on top of that. Hispanic cops are the worst cop, and I'm being bigoted in that instance. My peoples, when they come to policing my own people, we're not very nice to each other. Um, in fact, most of the brutal Sunset Park cops, the worst ones are always the Latin ones, particularly one called Officer Rodriguez. Prick to the core. And that's not the one that hit me the time I got beat up by a cop. But having said all that, like if they have to use the military for the policing of New York, for instance, sign me up. certified player agrees. Get all the military to New York, and if it's to help with the immigration operation, I mean, even better. But if it's just even for policing instances to stop all the morons from cuffing off on women and doing dumb shit, like I'd be totally for that. But what Trump's insinuating is using the military. Oh, okay. I was making sure that door is locked. Is using the military in an effort to remove immigrants, and I think that's a splendid idea. I think it's a splendid idea because the legal red tape that it would require right now to eliminate, screen, do whatever you have to do to get migrants out of America and New York City rapidly would take so much time and a lot of red tape, and we don't need all that. Like, I mean, if the military were an avenue in which you could get these people out of here expediently, do it. If you could do it by using private contractors, do it. If you could do it, this cat is growing around. If you could do it by any fashion, creating a new volunteer force, like creating a new paid force, any solution like to alleviate the biggest problem that this country has at this current juncture, especially for a certified player, Brooklyn native, one whose mom still lives in Brooklyn. Whatever you have to do to get them out, get them out. That would be my best suggestion. But some people are like and this is baby 11. She's growing a lot though. She's a little runt, but she's sick though. Bye bye. But whatever effort that they could do to she's coming to bother again. Leave my pen alone, baby. Whatever effort they could do to solve the biggest problem that's affecting this country currently, which is the migrant problem, I'd be all for it. I could give some suggestions. I mean, if need be, and if they had some sort of paid position, especially in a consulting effort, I think that'd be very good at showing where their nests lie and whatnot. So to use the military in an effort to remove migrants or solve any of the other problems that we have affecting this country, I'd be with it. But so yeah, if it's an effort at the border to put the military there, we should do that shit immediately. I don't know why Governor Abbott didn't do it on his own. I think he waited for a Trump presidency. But he's in a rock and a hard place. Like like he's getting criticized for shipping migrants out of Texas into New York, which if I were him and that were the two options that I had, I mean, I'd do the same thing. But so could he have used the Texas National Guard to and posted them up as an effort to stop migrants at the border? They should have done that, yeah. But I think the American people, in a sense, had to see all this like play out the way it did. That's just my theory. I mean, like, in spite of the fact that Trump won in such a big fashion in the election, let me see how I sound though. In spite of the fact that Trump won so resoundingly in this past election, and it's because like the people spoke. It's not because of people weren't ready for a female president. It's not because people weren't ready for a black president. We already had a black president. It's more along the lines that Trump, because of the stupidity of this country, made himself into a populist candidate. Mind you, with people that don't like him. I mean, a lot of people that didn't like him became his biggest supporters, especially minorities. Like Candace Owens made a good point regarding black conservative voters, and she said that black liberals, and this applies like to Latins as well, like black liberals will sometimes vote conservative, whereas black conservatives will never vote liberal. And that's a good point. I mean, that's a fantastic point, and it kind of like brings me to the fact about how many people in this last election, so-called minorities, quote unquote, um, turned on the Democratic Party in essence, and that's because of the message that Trump was kicking, which is very basic. The message was basically, you're broke as shit. Under like when I wasn't in office, you became far broker, and you also have this migrant problem that you're being told doesn't exist, but all you have to do is go to the New York local news to see all the evidence that it does exist. And again, I only watch New York local news when I do watch news because that's the channels I get here in New Jersey, being that I'm a suburb of New York. But the same channels you get in New York, 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 25, are the same public channels that I get here. So, and plus, I mean, I'm a New Yorker through and through. I mean, it's not like I live far from New York. You can see the skyline from my house. I live 14 miles away from my old neighborhood, which is not it. My old neighborhood is deeper than like Midtown Manhattan. I live like 20 minutes away, 15 minutes away from Midtown Manhattan. So, and everybody around here works in New York, was from New York. You know, it's even the Jersey people that are like from these areas, like Jersey City, let's say, or Newark. There's a very kind of like interconnection that you have with New York City in New Jersey. Um, so the New York politics or the way that New York flows deeply affects us. Not only that, but also it's not like we're unbeknownst to what happens in New York here in New Jersey, because I mean New Jersey is pretty much an extension of New York. But the media that we get is also New York City's media, like here in North Jersey. So here in North Jersey and in New York, we were seeing the national news tell us that migration is a right-wing conspiracy theory or some bigoted theory, or that's not happening. Like, you know, it's not that bad. You know, look at this stat. Like that, Trump's saying that that there's more migrants coming in during the time that Biden's in office. But if you look at this stat for these past 2 months, like migration is actually going down. Like it's like these retarded, you know, stats that people leftists will ingest and run with, so long as it's not giving Trump any credit. Like that's all leftists need. Like they just need a headline that says something like negative about Trump, and that'll keep them going throughout the span of the day. But in New York City, mind you, I mean, like it's a leftist hub, just like North Jersey is. I mean, this is a blue state. But we were being told in a national level that the migration issue was not an issue. But meanwhile, most of us here in North Jersey commute into New York every day. And most of the people that live in New York that are hearing this national news on Meet the Press or all these national news shows are being pointed to statistics like saying that migration went down in the month of July, so Trump's lying because of that. Or, oh yeah, technically migration's like the number of people that went into the border like this month is like less than any of the Trump months. Like if you're living in New York, you only see like a wave of just straight up dudes that came out of nowhere. Nobody likes them. They're not from the country. Don't speak English. Doing all sorts of crime. In fact, my brother who just called me from jail was mentioning being locked up with a lot of Venezuelan migrants in Rikers Island. But you know, while nationally you're being told one thing, in New York City, the most liberal spot probably in the world, you're living through something else. And the people saw that, the people that were looking. I mean, again, you're gonna have some people that just don't like Trump. I mean, and I can't really try to. I'm not here to try to convert anybody. The election already happened anyway. But there's some people that just don't like Trump, and if you point them to a statistic that may find reason to something that Trump is saying, for instance, or like in some instances where I gave a story recently on a panel that I went to a funeral. Actually, I have the funeral story right there. I don't want to show his name. Like, hold on. One love to my bro's dad, bro. Like fucking But at this funeral, I was chopping it up with some of my broskies who are all black. I mean, like if you want me to take a group picture with my friends to prove my affinity to some hood shit, like I mean, by all means, like. But trust me when I tell you that I was at that funeral that I just pictured. Look, let's see the date too. For the morons. Let's see. November 2nd, right? The weekend before the election. Bang. Let's see. Can't see it on my thing. Anyhow, I was at that funeral chopping it up with my bros. Um, and besides my man Soul Boogie were the only Latin cats there. But my brothers are my brothers. I mean, like, I've known them for more than 2 decades. I mean, and they have a funeral, I'm pulling up. But after the funeral, me and my bros were speaking about the election because it was on the heels of happening. So I'm telling this story because at that time we're having this discussion, and it wasn't even a discussion. It seemed like everybody was either not voting for Kamala the weekend prior to the election, or that they were voting for Trump outright. Besides one person, he was kind of like poison pilling the conversation and saying, "Oh, you guys think that the election is true," which I don't think the elections are true. But and Sir Foul Police, he's being candid, my friends. If I'm being totally candid, I don't participate in these things in most instances. Very limited times in which I participate in elections, and you could probably count it on two fingers only. That's literally the only elections I've partaken in. Um, and one was when I was 19 years old or some shit. I was very young, or 18 years old. 18 years old, and I only did that like to get out of doing work, like use my time to go to the election so I can get out of work for an hour. But the first time. But I'm saying this story regarding what's happened, what went down at this funeral. Like we're having this conversation, and that all these dudes who are my brothers, who are either black, Jamaican, or other West Indian, black West Indian. Nobody was messing with Cammy. Mind you, Kamala Harris is Jamaican too. I mean, the funeral that I attended to was for my Jamaican, my dogs, my bro, love him to death. I mean, like we ate curry chicken at the end of the across the street from the funeral home right afterwards. They were playing "I Don't Want to Wait in Vain" or reggae songs. That this is no yuppies that we're talking about here. But again, I'm saying this story. I mean, I'm being candid. I mean, I don't want to share the story of somebody's funeral, like but I guess to illustrate the point of something that I lived through, and being that political discourse was very high the week before the election, I said this story about me going to the funeral, and let everybody in the funeral, who are not whitewashed people at all, these are gangsters, was anti Kamala Harris, basically. They were either pro Trump or anti Kamala Harris. Now, I said that story probably that same weekend. It maybe, I mean, maybe a couple days after that. on a different panel, and I was stating that I think the momentum as far as like the black people that I do know in New York, which I mean more than half of my friends are black cats, uh, especially the ones I have nowadays. But I'm saying this story, and people are saying I'm lying on the panel, and people are basically saying that I'm lying about that in defense of like Democrats, which at the end, you're basically questioning um, or calling me out for lying like on a panel for Kamala Harris or some shit. Like the fact that like and this is the kind of stuff you work through when you say you like when as a New Yorker like saying that there was a migrant problem and whatnot, like where you gotta like I've had that happen in panels too, like where somebody pulls up a stat. Well, technically, well, look at the stat right here from Google. Like, no, in the last like couple months, like since like the last year, like there's been less migration than like the year before that. Like, it would just be like these retarded like circular conversations where people will like basically go against their own like kin, um, and make them feel sound as if they're liars. Um, and they're doing it for a political party. I mean, for the wackest political party in the world. And it's not like, again, like I'm some anomaly and shit. Like I felt like an anomaly in 2020 um, with my support for Trump because it was far less popular as a Puerto Rican dude to say that you supported Trump in 2020. Nobody was rocking with me then. But I was basically saying stories in which I illustrated what's happening from my perspective. Again, I live in I live in the suburbs in New Jersey, yes, but I still have my mom living in Sunset Park. I still go to Sunset Park. I shoot content in Sunset Park. Damn it. So I mean, but it gets that bad, and and I don't think it happened that stuff was happening because people were loyal to like the DNC or to the Democrats. I would call it out like that. I'd say, you're going after me for some Democrats. But I think it was happening more along the lines because of the bigger issue that you have to contend with when you talk about political things nowadays, which is the hate for Trump. Like dudes like want to apply their distaste and hate for Trump into political discussion. And in 2024, that shit ain't working. I mean, like, there were times in 2020, I'm not saying I doubted myself, but that you're like, damn, like, these dudes, like, literally, like, might think I'm fucking, like, some type of racist or some shit or self-hating, like, Puerto Rican cat. Cutting cuticles. Because he's not rocking with liberals no more. I mean, it really felt like I was on an island. Like, whereas like now, I mean, like it seemed like there were a ton of people like trying to clear their own consciences and like, oh, or basically like trying to tell me good things about Trump on this lie, like from my friend groups. Whereas before that, like a lot of them hated Trump, and it was hard to navigate that. But it's even more frustrating at times to navigate it on the internet or on YouTube. To be frank, because I don't know. The fact that I enunciate and speak in the manner in which I do, like sometimes like people think that and I've always talked this way too. Even when I lived in the hood for the most part, I always talked a little bit like or tried to speak properly as best I could. But as I got older, I think I speak a little bit more proper, I guess, because I read and to try to say that you're rerouting yourself into conservatism, with the set of circumstances that I have to deal with, being like a lighter, almost white looking dude. The fact that I talked like a white dude for the most part, like it was tough. It was really tough. But then I would get on these panels, and then like it's almost like people testing your gangster in a sense, um, and making it seem like like because you don't hate Trump as much, that because you haven't that because you don't hate Trump, that you're not paying attention or some shit. And it was extremely frustrating. But I mean, like at the end of the day, I mean, like I gotta navigate knowing that I'm dealing with emotional people, because if the only reason that you don't like Trump is, or if your politics are navigated by the fact that you hate Trump, then you're voting with your emotions, and that's a bad look for a man, especially. I'm saying this message more directly at men, because I so a lot of men like wanting to act like they want to fight somebody over Cammy, or wanting to fight somebody because they want to vote along the lines of the degenerates in the many colored community, if you will, or the colors of the rainbow. It was very frustrating to navigate that stuff. And honestly, too, it's because, and a lot of times, you deal with that stuff in a sense in which you're on the defensive, and you got to be more offensive. Like I got to be more offensive with mine, like when these things arise, because I'm kind of like shitting on myself, operating in good faith that people are actually reading when I know they're not. Like people are reading through headlines, and they're only looking to things that say me Trump bad, not like Trump bad. And then if you say, oh well, all these things are happening in terms of my wallet, like the mortgage that I got to pay for this house is a lot harder to navigate with the in the last 4 years. No, it's because you don't work hard enough. Trump bad. Trump is bad, and it's like retarded. Like, so it's like I can't, and like I would ask people a lot of times, like on these panels, that's how much people are fronting. Like a yes or no question, and then it'll go into this long-winded explanation. Like, oh, are you doing better now or the last 4 years? Well, personally for me, like I could make more money because I started doing this or working harder. I mean, so you're answering your like people like, and it's basically you get this like vague, aloof, vapid, um, kind of like tactical conversations with people, and you look at as to why they're doing it, and it's for Democrats, bro. Come on, man. Like you really gotta we really gotta slow down. Um, and I say this more along like more so to my minorities, my quote unquote minorities. And this applies for anyone too. I mean, it's not. I'm not bigoted. I'm not racist with mine. The and you know and well, I guess I'll get to the other facets of that, like because I gotta start going in on these things a lot more too. And I always listen. And as far as Sir Foul Playsky goes, um, I'm not gonna say I was brought up in the conscious community, because I wasn't. I found the conscious community, the quote unquote conscious community, before there was a conscious community. Um, by the triangle near DeKalb Avenue in Brooklyn, where the dudes that would sell Malachi York books were chopping it up. You know, the little triangle area that's near the Conedison on Atlantic Avenue, or across the way from the Conedison in Atlantic Avenue, right by the or that triangle that traffic triangle that used to exist across the street from the McDonald's as you get out of the DeKalb Avenue train station, where the conscious Brooklyn cats used to chop it up. And even in Harlem, and honestly, the Brooklyn stuff predated Harlem. But anyways, going back to that though, I've had some sort of knowledge of self to a degree. Like I've known about like, and I mean my best friend was a 5%. Like when I got to John Jay High School, like the dudes that I would chop it up with were like the Israelite cats. And there were two factions of Israelite cats in John Jay, the ones that believed in Jesus and the ones that didn't. Um, but God bodies, I mean like everybody who goes in jail comes out with the knowledge of self, like from the 5%. And you get a little bit of that like stuff along the way. I mean, like if you look at the bylaws of the Latin Kings, I'm not a Latin King. Well, I wasn't in a Latin King. I wasn't in the Latin King. But you look at their bylaws, and it's the same shit as 5%ers for the most part. Um, and that's because everybody in New York, whether you're Spanish, black, has that like is sort of inspired by that or knows those lessons that the 5%ers or the Nation of Islam or the Israelites, everybody knew what they were about in New York City, basically. Even if they weren't conscious, but I would actually chop it up with some of those dudes because for those times they were conscious. They were the ones that didn't believe in the Bible any longer, or like didn't believe in that Jesus was a white guy, and that stuff was like mind blowing. Because it was not like some herbs that were talking about it. This was like dudes that were selling drugs. Some of them in high school that were they had like kind of they rolled like a little bit of a gang in a way. Like some of the Israelites wouldn't shave their faces and their heads, like so all of them had their hair twisted for the most part, and they weren't like pussies either. These dudes were far from pussy. They would get into beef too. Actually, there was a big beef that popped off in John Jay High School, the worst high school in America at that time. Um, was the school that Sir Plavsky had to attend after he got kicked out of his first high school. But um, there was a beef that I remember with the Israelite cats because there was Israelites that didn't believe in Jesus, that really didn't have like that much of a presence in John Jay High School when I was there. But there were probably like two or three that I remember. But there was one particularly that wasn't part of the faction that believed in Jesus that would sell weed. And from what I heard was that he got robbed, I think by Bloods. And the Bloods in John Jay High School at that time, I mean, talking like mid-90s, that was Blood Central. I mean, like, it was a lot of Latin Kings, a lot of Bloods in John Jay, but the Bloods were extremely deep. But I think the Bloods had robbed that kid, the Israelite cat, off his like weed. But the other Israelite cats that weren't part of the non-believers of Jesus crowd, which the cat that did sell weed, his faction didn't believe in Jesus. The Israelites crew that was in John Jay that did believe in Jesus though, and that crew was had a large Spanish representation within it. I mean, it was mostly black, but they had like 30% like Puerto Rican, Dominican dudes. One of my friends from Sunset was actually down with those dudes, Cisco. But shout out to him too. He has a channel on YouTube too. I wish I knew his name. But they actually got into beef with the Bloods over that other kid getting robbed. They actually got the kid's stuff back, and they put the beats on a few Blood cats. And these dudes weren't that many like that. It was probably like in John Jay, there was probably like 16 of them. But they were tight though. They were mean looking dudes. But and that stuff wasn't on no gang stuff or like that stuff. When you would listen to them speak, they weren't speaking about trying to rescue somebody like some other dude's weed stash. Like when they would speak, they would talk about religious stuff, like who the curse of Ham was intended for, or just crazy stuff. So I always came up in that, and like even and before I even got to John Jay, I already knew of like Dr. York and all that shit. Um, I knew of Alton Maddox from the news. So I already have a bit of knowledge of self. And that's why, like, when I tell you, fast forward to like 2010, 2012, like around the time that, like, I'm seeing like now military in the train stations in New York. And now also like this 2012 the world may end like thing is kind of like in the back of my mind somewhat. So I was going kind of like, and I lived through the first years of Obama. I thought like when Obama became the president that he had to appoint at least a few like dudes that were like black or minority cats that were real black or minority cats, not no whitewashed, pussified Hollywood skinny type like Obama. Obama's a bitch, basically. Obama's probably the worst. Like my man Born that was on my channel said that Obama was the worst president that he lived on through under. My debate was that Biden was, but Obama might have been one of the worst presidents in that I did live through. But when 2008 popped off, I thought that Obama was going to appoint at least a few people that were about something to do with so-called minorities or black people, better yet. And none of that popped off. I mean, like, and there were still people that like at my job, a lot of the black cats, like, yo, that was the best president we had. And you tell them like, oh, like, so what did you like that he accomplished? Oh, well, like, the Republicans like had the Congress at that point, and like he couldn't do this, and that, which is not entirely true. Um, but they can't really name something like that he accomplished like under his time as the president. The only thing that they can name is like, yeah, but my son was born at a time when there was a black president, like with a black wife, and my son's black, so he's gonna have that in his memory forever. Yada 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 yada. At the end of the day, look in 2024. Like, who were they telling to? Who were the Democrats telling to not expect anything out of this election, like because of racism? I mean, they weren't telling Latin people that. They were telling Latin people that they were going to give them tangible goods, as in tax credit for expanding their families, whereas black men were offered the same shit that Kamala was offering everybody else. Can't ask for it now. Damn, dogs, did my stream die? Oh, okay. Sorry. But, like the reparations argument in 2024, when it was being brought up, was basically being shot down by what I saw other black people. I mean, and it makes sense because, I mean, like, how bad would it sound for like a Puerto Rican guy like myself to say something bad about reparations? But when you got like black people saying like, oh, we can't ask for reparations right now because, oh, why we always got to look out for something for, you see how we always got to look out for something, like trying to get something for ourselves. Basically like look that way. Like don't hone in on this really important thing that may benefit you. No, it's like basically don't ask about that really important thing that may benefit you 4 months before the election because of Trump. And gladly black people didn't fall for the okie doke with this last one. And I dissed it, and it was funny too because the last time that the pendulum swung from one party to another party for black men, believe it or not, I actually did some research on this, was 48 years ago. And I don't know if you guys know who that president is. If anybody's listening now and they put that name for the president that was the president 48 years ago, I'll give you a bonus gift if you say it in the next 30 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna count fast. 5. I don't want to give a bonus gift. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever. 30 seconds has passed. Nobody said it. That president, though, in which the last time that the pendulum swung from people leaving the Republican Party, black men, to go to the Democrat Party, the last time that black turnout was very high like that was for President Carter. funny enough. And if you guys don't know, before Biden existed, people would say that President Carter was the worst president on record from 1976 to 80, I believe. So much so that people swung the pendulum in the other direction when Reagan came around, even though Reagan supposedly was the president of bigots and all this shit, the racist president. But people thought that Carter was so bad that they voted for an actor in mass in Reagan. But if you think about what happened under Carter, um, I mean, like that was peak black exploitation films um, were popping off right before that, honestly. But that's just to show you where our people's mental were, if you will. But you also have so you have a lot of dudes that are probably watching these shitty ass movies that's basically telling you everything but stay home and be a dad, or it's basically telling you that the real guys that haven't made dress in these like feminine ass like bright pimp clothes, and they're beating women up and mistreating women, and that's what it takes to be a real man. I'm not saying that everybody fell into that. What I am saying is that stuff was not only taking root in 1976, it was already firmly entrenched in 1976. And it was acceptable to see black women on film being treated like shit at that time. And these aren't black men producing these films. I'm saying that this was out there, if you will. It was acceptable to go to a movie theater and see some shitty ass pimp flick. But during that time, 48 years ago, also too, the end of the hippie era and the beginning of the hyper welfare era for our women started taking root, where they started looking at things as, I could do a lot better for myself if I act like there's no man in this house and the state gives me bread. So you have men and women in mass, the black community, ditching what they were rooted in to begin with, Christianity, like they were raised in, seeing a mom and dad like at home, which they were raised in. That was the first generation, I think. If you look back, I wasn't around at that time, but if you think back on 76, I'm not saying that it was the peak of that time, but it could have been one of the peaks if you look back at it with the fine comb. But it took us 48 years for that pendulum to swing in the other direction. And if you think about it, though, in that 48 years, the guys who were voting for Carter in mass like that, if they were 18 or 20 at that time in 76, then they were 68 at this juncture in 2024, 68 years old, if not older. So a lot of those people have died off. And I think we're at the beginning of a new era. Love? What are you doing? All right, go inside. I think we're at the beginning of a new era, like for our people, like where we're not going to be taken for the okie doke. Again, if you look at like the statement that Candace Owens said, which I find very true, in that black liberal may at times vote for a conservative, but a black conservative will never vote for a liberal. But you have a large slew of mostly men, black men, that switched it up and voted conservative in this election. And I think that's going to be monumental for this country. If you don't think so and you want to kick up and like throw your hands up in defeat and act like you're, you ain't get your pick and you're going to pout and criticize, and now all of a sudden you're not going to be blind to politics. Now, like, you're going to be looking at things with a fine, with the magnifying glass. Like, whereas most people that hate Trump were blind politically from 2020 to 2024. So we can't really listen to people like that unless they start switching up their own mental in 2024 and 2025 and beyond. But the people that have voted conservative in this past election, the quote unquote minorities, going back to that statement from Candace Owen of these people that are black conservatives will never vote liberal. I mean, a lot of these men that their vote went conservative this time around, I could clearly see that they will never vote liberal because it took them a lot of head wringing and thinking as to why they should vote Trump in 2024. It wasn't something that they came up to very easy. Having said that, though, now that they've taken the red pill, in a sense, they ain't ever going back. So you got a wave of people that are going to be raising their kids conservative, that see through the bullshit that all women are like whores and like you'll never find the wife. Nah, these are people that are gonna look for a wife. And honestly, too, I mean, here in North Jersey, I mean, like a lot of the young couple homeowners, whatever, like black cats, like are with like black women, which is, I mean, I don't know if that's like, but I'm seeing it more. I'll put it like that, and that's beautiful to see. Like I love the fact that like because like one of their kids or one of our kids could be the next big thing. Like we don't need another Obama to be the president. We need one of these dudes that were raised with their dads, that their dads look like them. Obama was raised with people that didn't look like him, and God knows where Obama even came from. If you do any real research on that, senator for 4 years, and then he's the president right off the rip. And he took the Senate seat off like a vacancy, and that was shady. A lot of shady stuff happening there too. But we don't need some enigma like that to become the president. I mean, think of like Brian Donalds being the president, but Brian Donalds, not necessarily like, which I think he'd make a fantastic candidate, but these new young kids that are being born in an era of really doofy people that existed these last generations from 76 to this point now. All those generations, my mom's generation, like her mom's generation, they were kind of losers, my friends. We gotta be candid. They were big time losers. I mean, yeah, your mom and dad may have worked hard, and I'm not saying that they didn't, but at some point, I mean, my mom or our parents at times made it seem like they were boogeymen out in the world, but meanwhile, like I mean, it was acceptable for teenagers to be shooting each other down like in Brooklyn, but we were supposed to worry about racist cops or some shit, like when me, I mean, and I hated cops as a kid. I still do, but that wasn't the biggest issue affecting us. I mean, like the biggest issue, I mean, was the fact that people weren't homeowners, the fact that I mean, as far as the Puerto Ricans in Sunset Park went, the ones I'm seeing, nobody was with their husbands or husband and wife. Love? No. Oh no, I thought the door was open. Nothing. But I have a lot of faith in what our people could become in the future, and I see really good things with the fact that these young kids are kind of like the first generation out of the goofy generation. This is going to be, well, in the past like many years, like if from 76 to this point, The whole rainbow stuff got way worse. The fact of like minorities, women and men hating each other got way worse. Welfare, way worse. Dependency on government, way worse. Um, Home ownership, or the fact that we don't own nothing, way worse. The fact that we could be policed and like way worse. And that didn't change. That never changed. I mean, I saw a lot of people that looked like me bitching about it, or but then when it came to making a real solution, they would throw up their hands and then say, "Oh, well, we got to start working on this too." And then they would just vote Democrat, 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 and like hope their problems would go away, or vote Democrat, 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 and then bitch about these I can't stand all these politics. Like, no, you're only trying one politic, and then you're expecting for something like different to happen. But this generation, I mean, of babies that are being born right now, are the first of seeing a tide of all those things I mentioned, whether it be rainbow, whether it be um, stupid political arguments based on racisms that really exist no matter what you do on both parties. But this is the first wave of that stuff starting to go in the other direction, downwards, and saying like, listen, like they're bigger fish to fry right now, like and we got to work on those things right now. We just can't keep throwing up our hands and like blackpilling ourselves at every turn. Um, and I've been thinking about that thought a lot in the last couple of weeks, like where this generation, I mean, there may be a few messiahs amongst them. Let me get a bottle of water. Be right back. I haven't drank in a minute, but I'm like in the mood for a beer for some reason. I think it's the fall weather. But if you guys have any comments too, please. That was annoying. Now I'm looking at myself drinking water. Or now I'm gonna touch on the topic at hand regarding this video, and that's World War III might be upon us. Every time I touch on a war subject on this channel, my live traction gets like no love, and I think they do that purposely. I mean, I've had when the war broke out in Eastern Europe, I was on that, and I gave my opinion back then, and I think that opinion wasn't popular with YouTube, and it wasn't really much of an opinion. I mean, like I wasn't siding with one faction or another as far as the war in Eastern Europe, but I don't think YouTube, the algorithm likes for you to mention one particular side of that war in Eastern Europe unfavorably. Particularly that guy whose name sounds like Alinsky. But having said all that, if you guys have been living on the rock the past couple of years, that country, along with the country that's controlled by Putin, have been at war. There was rumors that Korea was sending a minimal amount of troops. I've heard that like in this past month. Again, on Twitter, I found this out about a month ago that there were small incremental amounts of troops that were going from Korea to assist in Russia with their war effort. And I don't know if those people were actively fighting at that time, the Koreans that were sent to Eastern Europe or Russia to assist with the war against that other country in Eastern Europe. But it was all hearsay at that point. Well, now this weekend, there was news that Biden authorized for long range missile strikes into Russian territory. And I think there may have been a supply of missiles with that capability to go into Russia. Um, Now that stuff doesn't happen really fast. I don't think there's no way you can get a missile over a weekend, like into a field of battle. Um, I think that those weapons that had the capability to strike into Russia were already supplied, but weren't authorized to be used deep into the heart of Russia, if you will. But seeing that Russia has now received, according to some reports, 15,000 highly trained Korean troops. I don't know if that number is accurate or not, but whereas last month when I heard that news on Twitter that North Koreans were entering the war to assist Russia, it was all hearsay then. But Twitter turned out to be true, like it always is. And a month later now, it's all the news. I mean, like that's all they were talking about today. Not everything they talked about because the news is still very pro liberal, and things that make the Biden administration look bad, they try not to report on it too brusquely, if you will. But they in the news, like what was being put out was that Biden either supplied missiles that had that capability officially and authorized them to be used into the heart of Russia because Russia received these North Korean troops. Now, Russia has put out a statement saying that they would consider that a major escalation that a U.S. supplied missile would strike into their homeland. A major. Not saying I agree with that or not, but it does seem like a escalation, and Russia sees it as an escalation from what they're saying. Now, why is this stuff popping off? Like, did what came first, the North Koreans to Russia, or the long range missiles that Biden supplied? I'm not sure, because again, I found out about the North Koreans going into Russia to assist Russia against Ukraine a month ago. So I don't know how much has happened, like whether those missiles were authorized. I mean, were received around that time too. Who knows? But what I do know is that the authorizing by Biden to strike into Russia is an outright escalation. That can't be debated. And that can't be debated also because, again, the whole North Koreans entering into the field of battle was just a rumor up until recently. Like the government wasn't putting that out there like that. Now they are. Now they are, in addition to saying that they've authorized the use of long-range missiles into the heartland of Russia. Why is this happening, though? Why is it that a president who, in Biden, has been at the beach most of the time he's been the president, getting lost on stage most of the time he's been the president, having troubles walking most of the time he's been president, has made a ton of political errors the whole time he's been president, including the Afghanistan withdrawal. When you talk about a military effort, one of the worst days of our military history as far as it relates to the United States. All these blunders are happening under Biden, whether he's not present, whether he's present. You could safely assume that Biden, at this current juncture, isn't really running things. It seems like it's a group of people that control Biden or somebody seemingly control Biden. I don't want to get into the minutia of who, because I don't know. But whoever's at the helm right now, whether that be Biden or somebody in his administration, they're not very reliable people because they've done nothing but screw up since 2020, 2021. So you have this escalation happening in spite of all of everything I just said. This president that seemingly is not present, doesn't seem like he's in control much, is escalating a war with a superpower. I mean, if America has the most nuclear warheads, Russia's got to be number two. It may be number one. But we have bad relations with China, which, I mean, that's neither here nor there. Um, the Russian bad relation, I never really understood. I mean, I always thought that being that they have a terrorist problem, we had a terrorist problem. They're a Christian nation, we're a Christian nation. I always thought that there should have been a lot more unity there. Whatever. But right now, it's not a Cold War that's popping off when it comes to the relations with the U.S. and Russia. No, it's like wild scale escalation on both sides. Um, so I ask you guys, like, who's really in charge of all this stuff? Um, and I also ask, in a far out crazy world, which is what we're living in right now, could I see a scenario in which people clamor for Trump to take the reins of the presidency ASAP, seeing that these people who are running things currently are irresponsible, reckless, and you also have, even though it's not reported widely in the news, the fact that when Trump won the election, you had all these world leaders basically saying that they're willing to negotiate, including the leaders of Ukraine and Russia. This is something that hasn't happened throughout the war, where both leaders agreed to some sort of de-escalation. This never happened with the Ukrainian leader under Biden, because Biden was giving them all the money that they could handle while Americans starved. You know, it was a lot more important for Ukraine to be supplied with weaponry and for all their social services to be paid by the U.S., including their retirement funds, for God knows what reason. Most of the cities in Ukraine look a ton better than American cities right now. I mean, it just seemed like a big laundering operation. I mean, and all wars are just that in some capacity. But you have one man in Trump who's basically anti that war and didn't pop off a war the whole time he was a president. But you also see, if you're paying attention, that all these world leaders are scared of Trump. I mean, or they respect him. They're willing to negotiate at the prospect of him winning an election. In fact, the leader of Ukraine met with Trump before the election popped off. So that just shows you what's up. I mean, and that's the thing too. I mean, if you ever have to get in a position in which you have to be led, which is going to happen at some point, if not right now, you may have a boss that, even though you don't think he leads you, on paper he does. But you may have a boss that's an abject dick, but he's super effective. Especially if I'm running a company. I don't need a boss that runs it for me, which, as an American, I need to pick who is going to run this country for me. I don't need that person to be likable. I don't need that person to be Puerto Rican. I don't need that person to promise joy. I don't need that person to not be racist. I don't need any of that stuff. I need that person to be effective. Because I look at things like this. Everybody's racist. So what are you gonna offer me now? If you're offering me like if the only thing you're offering me is basically pointing out that the other option is more racist than I, then you're basically telling me you ain't giving me shit. I look at everybody as an enemy, and I look at everybody as what they could do for me. Not an enemy necessarily, but nobody's working alongside you. Nobody's working alongside me. That's with political candidates. That's with anything. Unless you want to be a victim. I mean, and there's some people, like, especially a lot of my minority brothers and sisters, that given the opportunity going into 2024 and beyond, they want to remain perpetual victims. And I mean, like, I was a victim too. Believe me. Trust me. I was always bitching about, like, some cop beating me up. I was always bitching about cops going through my pockets, always bitching about something, especially when I lived in New York City. But I found myself where I'm talking about other people affecting my life um, more so than the things that I could do to make my life better. And from that point on, I mean, like, that kind of thinking, I mean, led me to where I am now. I mean, and I'm not like, I'm way happier now if I gotta put it like that. I have more shit now if I gotta put it like that. But the self defeating is for the birds in 2025, and I want to start kicking that stuff more like here on this channel. A lot of times I had a lot of reprehensions of speaking on these issues that affect minorities because of the fact that I'm Puerto Rican, and these things ultimately affect black people far more negatively than they do Puerto Ricans. It's a fact. I mean, but at times because of the things that I mentioned in the past, the fact that I enunciate or the fact that I look like a white cat and at times sound like a white cat, like made me have reprehensions of speaking on things that were sounded critical of the condition that minorities are living in now. But World War III might be upon us, my peoples. Like, what else could we lose at this stage? Or I'm saying that personally. What the hell do I have to lose at this stage? You know what I'm saying? And besides that, too, I mean, like, not that many of my friends know that I even do YouTube because they don't. In fact, I think if they knew that I was doing YouTube, they'd tell me not to. But why should I not speak away in front of my friends who are black dudes and then come on YouTube and walk on eggshells? You know what I'm saying? Like, because in actuality, if I were saying these points in person in New York City to whoever, whatever crowd, even if I don't know them, and somebody felt the way, I mean, they're not going to be making that much known in the flesh. I mean, from my past experience, because I mean, like, certain things aren't acceptable in person. Like, it's not acceptable if I was saying these points in my any corner in my hood in New York, and somebody says like, "Oh, well, you're one of these racists," like that conversation wouldn't last more than another second before, like, somebody's getting a little bit of a foul play presence in front of them and seeing what's up. Like, or somebody getting pulled to task and seeing if they have real balls. And most times, I mean, like, people fold. But I'm not saying I go look for that stuff. I'm saying that what's acceptable on YouTube is not really what I experience in a real life situation. And I gotta be frank that I think a lot of people in 2024 aren't really going out and experiencing life or reading when they're not experiencing life. So why be shy about how I feel? Look at the little baby cats. Let me grab the kid. Molly. But with that, guys, I'm gonna take off. I hope you guys. I'm gonna come back to you tomorrow. But I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I know many people watched the Tyson Jake Paul fight this weekend. Um, I did as well. It's been a while since there was like a event of that magnitude. Um, that seems like everybody watched it. I mean, everybody and their mother watched that. Ow! And I was just watching a baseball show um, called John Boy on YouTube a few minutes ago, and they started the show off by talking about that fight. But that's cool that, in spite of all the crazy shit that happened, um, at the heels of a contentious love you election, that this weekend we got a little bit of time to, like, exhale and relax and decompress and just watch boxing and be entertained. And shout out to my girl Amanda Serrano, my boxing wife, getting cheated by these Tex-Mex judges. But that's boxing for you. But it was cool like that. I just like the fact that it was a big event and that everybody watched it. You guys also, I didn't watch. I fell asleep, um, and I didn't get to watch UFC 309. But the John Jones doing the Trump dance after he won, and if you guys don't know, he offered up his championship belt to Trump after the fight, thanked Trump, and he said that he was proud to be a Christian American champion. You know, and that happened Saturday night, only to be followed up with a weekend full of NFL games on Sunday, where everybody and their mother was doing the Trump dance. Black, white players, you name it. So the uh, the tide is turning. I mean, from what I see, and the opposition. I mean, not the opposition, but the people that are basically just hating on Trump as a lifestyle. I mean, they just sound more ridiculous with the passing of time. But with that, let me let you guys go. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm gonna watch this whack ass football game, maybe. But I'm gonna start doing sports on my other channel too, Foul Play Sports or Foul Player Sports. I just don't have the time at times. But hopefully I'll get that going soon too. But with that, let me let you guys go, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for stepping into the Foul Play Land with me. As always, I am Sir Foul Player. But before I do go, if you found this channel, whether that be on the live replay, whether that be because the YouTube algorithm wasn't trying to jerk me this evening, you found this channel by a miracle of bad big tech technology. YouTube is not going to help me one iota, and YouTube, at the end of the day, could blow a fat one. I don't want their help, but I do need your help. So the biggest thing you could do for me is do like, share, and subscribe to this channel. I'm gonna come on like most nights from now on. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Peace.